Hey yo, welcome back. Some time out of the scene, but we're back in business after the Monaco Grand Prix, right? So let's go with the evaluation of the Grand Prix quite quickly. It was an interesting Grand Prix, but I think we saw some, let's say, the true face of several drivers, right? And let's start with, obviously, the winning car. We have Red Bull, that I will give them a 9. I will give them a 9, especially not because they are dominating, not because they had, I will just say, like, an easy race, which it was not. But I will give them a 9 because they had the balls to keep Verstappen out with a medium tire, quite a destroyed medium tire, all the way until the rain appeared. As you saw, if you saw the race, all the other drivers that had a medium tire had already gone to the pits. Except for Max Verstappen, who was able to keep the pace, the same like Alonso was keeping, by the way, with a hard tire, all the way until the rain appeared, because they knew the rain was going to appear. Everybody knew the rain was going to appear. That's why some drivers went with the hard tire in the beginning, such as Alonso or Sainz, right? And the same thing for Verstappen. I will give him a 9. I mean, there is no 10 here, right? But still, he did the pole position with an amazing lap. He kept the pace all the way with a medium tire, something no other driver did. And he waited for the rain, and when the rain came, more or less, I think they went to the pits one lap later, because I don't know if everybody knew how long the rain was gonna be falling on the racetrack, right? But still, they went, they waited, and they did the pit stop more or less in the correct lap. And Perez, what can we say about Perez, right? I think we also saw what happened with Sergio Perez, right? In the qualifying, he made a horrible mistake in the worst racetrack possible to make a mistake, which is this one. If you don't want to make a mistake in any qualifying, in any racetrack possible, it's Monaco. And he made a mistake, he destroyed the car, he had to go last, and once you're last, your race is over. Unless there is a safety car or something like this and you can put a hard tire, something they tried, by the way, to put a hard tire. But they put a hard tire, and like in 2 or 3 laps, they were already at the back of the queue already. So once you're there, you can do nothing. You can do nothing because the cars in front of you, all of them have DRS, but still you cannot pass anybody, because in this racetrack, even if you have DRS, you have 0 chances of passing anyone. So, and not only that, he also had a crash with, I don't remember with who, which he destroyed the front wing as well. We saw many crashes, we saw people going off the track, I mean, the only possible places. But still, like, Sergio Perez had a nightmare of a race, and having that mistake in the qualifying destroyed his race. That's why I give him a 3. I mean, this is the only racetrack where qualifying cannot have mistakes, and he did one. So, Sergio Perez, a 3. As you can see, I have been a little bit cruel with Ferrari, mainly for a couple of reasons. Number one, and I think this is something Ferrari has to start looking for once again. I think people have been complaining about this a long time ago. The strategists of Ferrari, I don't know what the hell they are doing, honestly. You have one car with hard tire. I think both of them were in the hard tire, by the way, if I'm not mistaken. Both of them were in the hard tire. And even if Carlos Sainz had that mistake with Ocon, which clipped a little bit the left side of the front wing, he can still keep going. He still had the pace. He was in front of Hamilton. He was behind Ocon. And if the strategy was played well and the pace of Carlos Sainz was good, keeping the hard tire on was the right choice. Same like, for example, Alonso did. Not going into the pits to put the medium tire in lap 30-something, which leaves you more than 40, I think it was like 43 laps with a medium tire. Something Verstappen did, by the way, but none of the others did. And that could have killed Carlos Sainz's race. Of course, he got frustrated by this, and of course, all the other mistakes that he did after that are gonna be justified by that, according to him. Of course, if you see the answers that he gave to the media, right? But still, Ferrari's strategy was really bad, and then of course the drivers didn't help a lot. Starting with Charles Leclerc, I will give him a 4, not because he didn't have any chance on the race. He qualified third, by the way, which was a really good position to start the race, and perhaps, I don't know if he had the pace to keep Alonso and Verstappen on side, but still, he had something. He was going to be third. He had the pace for it. A pace that, for him, for example, Carlos Sainz didn't have on the weekend, right? But still, if you have seen all the free practice and stuff, you can see that Charles Leclerc was one of those drivers that was in the middle of the track all the time. Looks like nobody was telling him, like, there is a fast driver coming from behind, including his own teammate. And this mistake to happen in Q3 is a huge mistake, because you know that the stewards are looking for this all the single corners possible, right? In all the single corners possible. And in the tunnel, I mean, it's one of the obvious places, right? And he was there, he was in the middle. Ferrari didn't say anything to Leclerc, apparently, that Norris was coming from behind in fast lap. And he had a penalty, right? A very well-deserved penalty. So Ferrari is very guilty for this, for the penalty of Leclerc in qualifying. Also him, maybe, but I don't know how much of the guilt falls upon Leclerc, right? But still. And after that, again, once you have the penalty and you fall 3 positions back, your race is over. You cannot overtake in this racetrack. And Carlos Sainz, I mean, he got so desperate behind Ocon, he crashed into him, right? He got a white and black flag for that. No penalties. I mean, come on. No penalties for crashing into another driver. It was a crash, by the way, that could have been avoided so easily. I honestly don't know where he was planning to go in the braking zone after the tunnel. There is no if. I mean, if you see the replay of Carlos Sainz trying to overtake Ocon after the tunnel in the braking point for the chicane, you will see that Carlos Sainz was not going to make that corner ever. Either he was not going to make the corner, or he was going to take both of them out. So Ocon got very lucky with that, not to get the car very damaged, or get a puncture, by the way. And Carlos Sainz got lucky that he didn't have a penalty, and that the car only had like these end plates from the front wing damaged, right, on the left side. After this, he got so frustrated, he started complaining like a little kid. Ocon is in the middle, you have to do something about that. Yes, you know what, Carlos Sainz? If you go to the replay, I mean, this driver does every single time the same thing. He does something and then he complains when other people do it to him, right? In the start, when Hamilton was trying to overtake him, what did Carlos Sainz do? He took Hamilton against the wall, right? And Hamilton had to back up to avoid a crash, like any other driver with some kind of brain would have done, right? And then when Ocon is doing the same thing to him, he starts complaining. Mate, look at yourself. If I were the Ferrari people, I would tell Ferrari, you know what? You deserve it. Stop. You are doing the same thing to other drivers. Shut the fuck up and keep driving, right? Oh, no, not only that. He was complaining about the strategy, and he was really angry with Ferrari's strategy, changing the hard tire to the medium tire and saying it was a really bad strategy. If you recall, last year, he was the one that told Ferrari, you know what, we will go from extreme wets straight to the dry tires in Monaco. Disobeying the call from Ferrari to go to the pits, like they did with Leclerc, and destroying his victory in Monaco, right? He did that last year here, and now he's complaining that Ferrari didn't listen to him. I mean, you are the driver. If you don't want to go into the pits, you don't go into the pits, and you tell Ferrari, you know what? No, I'm gonna keep on with the hard tire. Something like all the drivers did, for example, right? I mean, so he got angry with Ferrari, he got frustrated, and then he made mistakes. With some drivers kept on the dry tires under the rainy conditions, right? And he made a mistake. He was the only one that made a mistake, by the way. And then he joined. He was trying to overtake Leclerc to go first into the pits, but he again, similar to Ocon thing after the chicane, after the tunnel, Leclerc closed the door and he was extremely aggressive. And I don't know where he was going, honestly, because he could have crashed both of them or himself. Really bad race. Really, really, really bad race. And of course, then complaining that Gasly went long in the chicane, which by the way he didn't. Many other drivers just jumped the whole chicane. Gasly just jumped one thing, and not because he was under attack from Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz was not even close to Gasly when Gasly did that. So, and still Gasly didn't go straight. He tried to do a part of the chicane. So, sorry. I mean, it was a horrible weekend for Carlos Sainz, and I think Ferrari might start looking in other directions for the second driver of Ferrari. These are just things I think, and some rumors that people might be saying that Ferrari might not renew Carlos Sainz further from 2023 or 4. I don't know which. I think it's 24, right? Yes. So, enough said. Mercedes, I will give them a 6. A 6 because they are trying to change the concept and because they were kind of smart enough to try to jump the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz and later the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, in the case of Russell, for example, right? They started the weekend with a new car, right? A new concept, which is not easy with the cost cap and everything. And they kind of found the pace. Hamilton was somewhere there into the first 3 in the qualifying, right? With a huge surprise from Ocon. But anyway, and on the race, they were there, silent but deadly, right? They made some strategy options, and they they jumped the Ferraris, and Hamilton was quicker than Ocon, same like Carlos Sainz was. So Hamilton didn't have the option to overtake him, and they didn't take any unnecessary risks, unlike Carlos Sainz. And George Russell, well, he was patient, and he was saying that he was faster than Hamilton, but Hamilton again was faster than Ocon, and none of them could attack him, right? So they did the smart thing, they took the points at home, and that was it. So I will give them a 6 because they didn't do any mistakes during the race, right? I think they made the right calls with the tires at the beginning and then waiting for the rain, so I will give them a 6. Aston Martin. Now this is an interesting one because they did with Alonso almost the first pole position, right, in the history of Aston Martin. But anyway, and then in some really non-logical decision, they called into the pits to Fernando Alonso, who was in the hard tire. They called him in the correct lap, where everybody else was putting intermediate tires, and they put him the medium tire when there was rainy conditions and the track was really slippery. I honestly don't understand this, and I think nobody does, not even Fernando Alonso. And by the way, Fernando Alonso is somebody who is supposed to be a very good race condition reader and these kind of things. Not being able to see that was the right call to put intermediate tires is a big mistake. And Aston Martin, who by the way had the same information like every other single team about the rain, they knew it was going to keep raining. Not being able to call that was the right time to call for intermediate tires shows that the team might be taking steps towards the front of the grid, which they are there, by the way. They have the driver to be in the front right now, and shows that they are not ready for the victory. I mean, that was the right call. Same way that Red Bull had the balls to keep Verstappen out because they knew the rain was coming, and they put a medium tire in the beginning of the race to defend themselves in the first corner from a possible attack from Fernando Alonso, right? I mean, it was pretty obvious. And the victory, by the way, went there because had they pitted in that lap with the intermediate tires, Fernando Alonso on the exit lap was going to be way faster than Max Verstappen, who was on the in the dry tires, in the medium tire, outside still trying to go to the pits, and was going to lose a lot of time in that lap. So they were going to win the race with that decision, because after that, even if Max was faster than Alonso in the rainy conditions, I mean, there was no chance that Alonso was going to let Verstappen pass him, right? Perhaps Verstappen would have tried, of course, in his classical way of let me go or we both crash, but it was not going to work. And I think they lost a huge opportunity to win a race this season. Maybe they will have another one, because let's face it, right now Aston Martin is the second car of the grid. and it doesn't look like any other car has the pace to be there, challenging either Red Bull or I would say Fernando Alonso, because Lance Stroll is not even close to there, right? So yeah, and I gave a 3 Stroll once again. Horrible race. He made a big mistake in the qualifying, something similar to Sergio Perez. And also, well, I will justify him a little bit, because when he went into the pits, you can see, and there was a replay, I think it was in Sky Sports in the UK. There was a replay when he was entering the pit lane. You can see that the board that they have in the pit lane, where they indicate the drivers that have to go to the FIA scrutiny, right? That the quick thing that they do for weighing the car and everything. There was nothing, and just as he was driving right next to that board, the panel changed to say number, I don't know what, 18 is a Stroll, I don't know. Driver 18 go into the FIA thing. Of course, he was not even looking there anymore, right? They put the message quite late, and he went straight to the pits of Aston Martin, and of course then they had to drag him out back to that, and he lost a lot of time and lost qualifying, and instead of being in the top 10 he was P14, so tough luck. But then in the race, I mean, he was trapped, he couldn't do anything. So I get, like Sergio Perez, I gave him a 3 because you cannot make mistakes in qualifying, and these little details in this special racetrack have a big impact. Alpine, I will give them an 8. I will give them an 8 because I don't know what the hell they did with the car, but the car was kind of there. And I mean there, like fighting with the Mercedes Ferraris, right? for the weekend. I don't know if it's a special thing for this racetrack. They said they were going to bring in some upgrades to Imola, which they brought to Monaco, same like every single other team. We will see where everybody is more or less in Barcelona, which is more a representative racetrack compared to this one. Still, Ocon did an amazing lap in qualifying. I don't even know if he knew where the time came from, but it was an amazing lap. And during the race, he kept it, right? He fended off Carlos Sainz in the first corner, and then after that, it was just a matter of keeping him at bay and keeping the head down and driving, and then pitting and cutting undercuts, right? Which they did. So amazing lap, amazing Grand Prix for Alpine and for Ocon, and similar to Pierre Gasly. Pierre Gasly was behind the group. Of course, you cannot overtake anybody, and the Alpine is not one of the cars with the best top speed. So still, he was there when the others made a mistake. He took advantage of it, and he finished there. So I give him an 8 and a 7, and a very good progress for Alpine. So I give them an 8. McLaren, looks like the car is progressing forward slowly. So I will give them a 6 because both of the cars finally made it into the points, right? Norris and Piastri, P9, P10. It was an okay Grand Prix. Still, you can see that there is a difference between the McLarens and the top 4 or 5 cars, right? Right now, looks like the top 10 is gonna be for both Red Bulls, both Aston Martins, both Ferraris, both Mercedes, and both Alpines. Unless there is a mistake from these top 5 teams, looks like the rest of the teams cannot score points. And there were mistakes from the top 5 teams, right? With Perez and Stroll out of the thing, and that's when McLaren came in. I mean, Tsunoda was fighting there, but he made a mistake he was complaining with some brakes. But anyway, you have to be there to take the points, and I give this to Norris and Piastri. Norris, by the way, who was kind of in the top 10 all the weekend, and Oscar Piastri, who was out of the top 10 most of the weekend, but finally he was able to fight to be there. Alfa Romeo. It was a tough weekend, I think, for this team, right? And I was expecting much more from this team in this racetrack. Considering, for example, that last year this car was really good in slow corners, and in Monaco they made an amazing race. I was expecting more from this team in this Grand Prix, and I don't know what is happening in this season, if it's because Alfa Romeo is leaving the grid, right, and Audi is stepping in. If they are kind of not into it anymore, right? I don't know what it is. If there is a transition coming and the team is gonna be once again at the back of the grid or what. But still, I think they kind of amended the weekend as the race went by, especially with Bottas, which was one of the few drivers that was able to overtake in the race in dry conditions. In the worst place possible, by the way, which is that hairpin, one of the tightest hairpins in F1 calendar, right? He was able to overtake there. And I think that's one of the few overtakes that we saw. He was kind of there with the McLarens and the Alpha Tauris, but yeah, and Zhou Guanyu was starting the race, so I think he was starting just in front of Sergio Perez, right? And he was able to recover some positions after the first lap, so I will give them a 6 to both of them. Haas, I mean, this was one of the worst Grand Prix ever for Haas, right? Horrible decisions in the strategy. I don't know what the hell happened with Kevin Magnussen, but his race was full of mistakes. Not pitting when everybody else was in the intermediates and waiting, I don't know how many laps with the dry tire. I think they were just gambling to see if everybody went into the intermediates and they made a mistake, and it was for some unholy reason gonna stop raining and they were in the dry tire. Maybe they were gonna recover some positions, but it didn't. And they kept him out so many laps, going so much slower than everybody else. And then they put a wet tire, but it was already too late. I think the intermediate tire was the right tire because after some laps it stopped raining and the track was drying quite fast. So, really bad. And of course, Kevin Magnussen had I don't know how many escapes into the safe exits, let's say, in the corners, right? In the first corner and other corners, Kevin Magnussen was one of the most seen drivers in those places during the race. Not a good race for Kevin Magnussen, many mistakes, and yeah, similar to Hülkenberg. During the weekend he had some crashes, and then in the first lap of the race he also had a crash, which conditioned the whole race for him, and what can we say? Not the best weekend for Haas, right? Once you're in traffic, your race is over. Alpha Tauri, I was gonna give them a little bit more of an evaluation mark, right, instead of a 5. But then I don't know what happened with the car. Tsunoda was in the top 10, and then when it started raining, something happened with his brakes that he was complaining about, and then he made a mistake when all the train with the McLarens and the other teams were pressuring him. He made a mistake. He was complaining about the brakes, so perhaps it was the brakes. I don't know. But Tsunoda was doing a kind of a good race until it started raining and everything went to trash. The car doesn't have a lot of pace, but still this weekend they were trying to fight for the top 10, right? Same like Nick de Vries. But still. And again, Nick de Vries, not as good qualifying as Tsunoda. Tsunoda, of course, is a more experienced driver in F1, and experience is very valued in F1. But still, out-qualified by Tsunoda, and then in the race he was not able to do much. I mean, what can I say? He was there, but he didn't do anything interesting, right? Like perhaps other drivers were trying. So, not a firework celebration race result for Alpha Tauri. And let's go to Williams. I will give them a 5. Not the best racetrack for Williams, I'm gonna say. I think Williams is more comfortable with racetracks that have long straights, and they can take advantage of that high top speed that they have. Perhaps in Imola would have been much better for them. And I was expecting a little bit more from Alex Albon, at least to be fighting for the top 10, right? Like he was doing in other races. But they didn't. But again, I think this racetrack is one of the worst racetracks for Williams. I think in Barcelona is gonna be a better racetrack for them. And Logan Sargent will win one of the two only rookies that we have in the grid this year. Similar to Nick de Vries, right? I think this is one of the few racetracks where they had been before, so the excuse of not knowing the racetrack is not there anymore. But still, didn't see him doing much. And I think this year with Nick de Vries is one of the worst drivers in the grid so far. And the stewards, sorry, I will give them a 5. I will give them a 5 because they did some right calls, but at the same time they did some other calls that were not very, very good. I will mention, for example, the thing that I mentioned with Stroll, when he was going into the pits, the message that car 18 should go into the FIA scrutiny place was shown a little bit too late, according to my own taste, right? Stroll perhaps looked at the board, he didn't see his number there, and then when they put the number, he wasn't looking anymore, because he has to be looking at other places to see if perhaps there is somebody walking there, right? So I think that was a bad thing from them, and then putting a penalty on Stroll because of that was not the best decision. And then not putting a penalty in Carlos Sainz, who was a reckless driver yesterday, it's not good. Especially when you did put a penalty in George Russell for unsafe joining the track. Which, yes and no. I mean, he has to join the track at some point, right? He cannot see if somebody's coming from behind. Which Perez, which was the car that hit him, Perez could, and still he didn't do anything. He just crashed into him instead of trying to brake. He was a lap car, by the way. I mean, putting the penalty just on Russell for that is not good. All the drivers, by the way, were joining the racetrack in same unsafe conditions, and none of them got a penalty because nobody crashed into them, right? Because they are smarter than Sergio Perez and just crash into somebody just because you want to. And even if Sergio Perez went through with Russell, in the next corner he was gonna have to let him pass again. So I don't know where he was going. But anyway, let me know if you share these evaluation marks. And I will see you, I think it's next week in Barcelona, where we are expecting to have a much more interesting race. See you then.